Go.
Hello, friends. Welcome back. This is part 2 with Yvette Matute.
Yes, good job.
I try. Yvette is in the mountains of Puerto Rico. It's storming right now. Her signal is going in and out. You know, she grew up in New York City, did social work. She's all about the life. You know, you were, in my early days, you were just like this powerful figure. And I was just like, with all of these things that are going on now, I'm sure you had a lot to say. So I'm so grateful that we were able to make this happen.
Yes, me too.
In in our previous conversation leading up to this, um, you were talking a little bit about mental health. What would you say about mental health based on your experiences now?
That's a big one. Well, mental health within the Black community, and when I'm saying Black, I'm saying people of color, Latinos, I'm saying is a big issue. We have internalized oppression. We have PTSD. Just being Black gives you PTSD growing up as a Black person. So I think that mental illness in the Black community is, the causes are two. The causes are generational, so behavior being watched after negative behavior being learned and being watched and copied, and also genetic. So we're getting it from both sides. And historically, Black communities and communities of color have gotten the least funding and the least attention for mental illness. Mental illness in the Black community, and still to this day, we're not even sensitive to each other with mental illness. We call each other crazy. You know, if you're bipolar, you're crazy. You have anxiety, you're crazy. You know, a lot of times what we call crazy is just individuals that are thinking on a different frequency or a different wavelength than we are, and don't fit into the constraints that society has created. And because they don't fit, we call them crazy. One of the things we were discussing the other day is Kanye. You know, is Kanye really as crazy as everybody thinks? Or is it that he's saying things that are too elevated and nobody wants to hear it? I started to listen to Donda, and I said, wait a minute, I need to listen to this like by myself and really listen to the words. This is a gospel, this is a hip hop gospel album, you know? And I loved it. When I heard about from it, I loved it. The quality of the work is excellent.
So Yvette, I wanted to ask you more specifically, what would you say about yourself specifically and mental health?
It's a journey. It's a journey. I have dealt with mental health since I was 6 years old. I got my first panic attack. And it's always just, you know, in our community, there's so much shame and stigma on mental health. And you're kind of told to toughen up and deal with it and suppress it. And I think that that's why we have so much mental health issues, because when the child has an issue, we don't address the issue of the child. We tell them to suck it up and deal with it. And the child grows up with all these issues and never been addressed. But as a culture, if we had a mindset that we want to address issues as they come up, and we won't have these adults that are broken and these adults that are hurt. So I think it's very important that we start the dialogue. That there's a few caveats with mental illness. Nobody wants to be mentally ill. You know, like people act like it's a choice, like you turn off a button, so a switch. Nobody wants to have a panic attack. Nobody wants to be uncomfortable. Nobody wants to go through that. And also, this is my personal opinion, and I'm entitled to it. There's a lot, you know, that's going on that's unseen. Spiritual warfare is real. If you have a mission on this earth, if you have a purpose, if you are to do big things, if you are to help humanity, the enemy is going to send weapons against you. because he doesn't want you to do well. He doesn't want you to work on your purpose. He doesn't want you to fulfill God's work. So those who have the biggest responsibilities or to accomplish the big thing, I believe, receive the biggest attacks and the hardest attacks. And then the hardest thing is with that is nobody understanding in the community. I think we need to become more understanding.
Would you say,
and stigmatize it so much.
would you say that your mental health stems from personal trauma, generational trauma, or something else?
I think it's all three. I think because genetically it's been learned that mental health is only 1%. You only inherit it. It's only genetically inherited. 1%. Let me see how I'm gonna say this. Like, I'm totally tongue-tied. The genetic factor in depression is only 1%. That means that depression and anxiety are learned behaviors. So that's generational. If you come from a parent that is depressed, you're 6 more times likely to be depressed. That means that the child learned the behavior of depression from the parent. So, and then society. You know, you are put in a society where you have the least educational resources, the least medical resources, poverty, drugs, crime, broken families, all of these things that hurt, that leave deep scars, that never are addressed. And then they grow up into adults, into a society that never respects them, that's just hurt them and doesn't respect them still. So it's all three. And then on top of that, you have these bold factors that cause mental illness within the Black community, but the Black community doesn't want to talk about it. So that's also why it gets perpetuated, because we're not accepting mental illness. Just like if somebody had diabetes, just like somebody had asthma, there is a chemical component to an imbalance and genetic, but also most of it is behavioral. Most of it is learned and behavioral, and based on the circumstances that you're in. You know, if you're in a pressure cooker, if you're raised in a place where there's a lot of violence and there's a lot of drugs and there's a lot of negativity around you, you put a child in that environment, you raise a child in that environment, you're gonna raise a child that's anxious because your child is always used to being in something going wrong. So the child is literally waiting for something to always go wrong. It becomes a mindset, a framework. And I think that's why I said it's all three. It's family, it's genetic, and it's the other, which is like circumstance. Because when you're raised in these tough environments, as I said before, you're always on the defensive. So whether it's coming from your house and your family, you're on the defensive. When you leave out to the street, you're in the defensive. It's like you're always on the defensive. And then people say, oh, well, why is there such a high rate of anxiety and depression? Because we're always on the defensive and then we don't talk about it. Emotionally, I feel that as Black people, we're very emotionally immature in terms of, like, part of being Black is being strong, being tough. So being mushy and vulnerable is not something that is really like encouraged. You know, you're looked at upon as weak in the Black culture. It's like, you know, for women, we're told put on your big girl panties and let's go. Like, Black women don't get time to rest or to play. Like, you know, get it together. We don't want to hear about your feelings. And this is why the problem continues to get worse, because we're not talking about our feelings. We're not being vulnerable with each other. Nobody wants to be wrong. People are so afraid to be wrong. And wrong just is it's just ego.
So much of what you're saying, you know, you really made me think about the fact that, you know, people don't, unless you lived it, you don't know what it's like to be poor in the ghetto or in the hood. You know, a lot of these places, like you said, there's a lot of hurdles, you know, whether it's gunshots, drug dealers, you know, men trying to get at young girls. Like, you have to deal with all of these things. And when you come out the other end and saying you have anxiety or mental health issues, it's almost like, well, what's wrong with you? Be tough like someone else. And
You grew up in the hood, you should be able to handle it. Why are you so soft? But let me just very clear. I didn't, in terms of economically, I didn't grow up poor. My mom was a teacher, my father was an entrepreneur, but I lived in communities of color, which are usually tend to be poor, which are Harlem, South Bronx, Washington Heights at some point. My mother had a co-op up there. But yeah, like, see, it's like we're raised in a war zone, but then they ask you why you're so angry.
I mean, so I'm really thinking about and having the conversation saying, let's move forward, and I think like these places for the most part, they are being gentrified, and the pockets are shrinking, but the people who live in the pockets are some. So if you live in the gentrified places, the gentrified is shrinking those pockets of poor people of color, right? But at the
But
same
that's taking them
time,
out of communities. It's not by bringing them up. It's not like gentrification is grabbing Black people by the hand and lifting them up. No, they're pushing them out of the communities. They're coming into their communities. They're making everything more expensive, where Black people that lived in those communities for decades can no longer afford to live in these communities. And now they have to leave these communities. Like, prime example, Harlem. When I was growing up, they had brownstones for $1. They were begging people to buy brownstones. Now a brownstone in Harlem can cost you $5-6 million. You have apartments in Brownstone that cost just one floor, $1.2 million for one floor of a brownstone. So, and this is what, in 20 years? So gentrification, everybody says gentrification is good, and it is to an extent, but it's not really good to the poor class. It's good for the middle class and the rich. So what does gentrification bring? Let's say to an area like the South Bronx. When I was living in the Bronx, I would literally buy my produce because I went to school on 14th Street down in the village. So I would buy my produce at Trader Joe's and bring it up because I could not find good produce in my neighborhood supermarket. I would buy fish and my meat downtown and bring it uptown because I would not find quality. You have places that are called maternity deserts in poor communities where you don't have any access to GYN. And women, for instance, you have Black women are having the higher rates of premature births and deaths still to this day. The United States is one of the most industrial countries in the world, yet we're the 6th leading country in death amongst Black women with premature births and deaths, still to this point. And, so gentrification is good in that, okay, you're going to get the Trader Joe now in South Bronx. We're going to get the Costco's in South Bronx. We're going to get malls in South Bronx. But then the rent is going to go up 35%. And now we can't afford to live in the South Bronx. So now we're moving further out, further out, further out.
Yonkers. Let me ask you this.
Well, no, I don't even know what's going to happen in New York because Yonkers is expensive. Yeah, people would Bronx to go to Yonkers. So Yonkers is already considered a suburb. So I don't see poor people being able to afford to move into Yonkers. And also Yonkers doesn't have a transit system, a thorough transit system, the way New York City does. So you need a car to live kind of in Yonkers. So you have the expense, and having a car in New York City is very expensive because you pay a note and you also pay ridiculous insurance. So just the cost of living doesn't make it even possible. And it starts to gentrification actually limits opportunities for the poorest of the people. Yes, it helps the middle class and the upper middle class and the rich live more comfortably and
increase property value.
Yes, and have better resources available to them. But the resources only become available to those people and not to the other people that need them. The people that need them the most.
I was gonna say that so Tell It Like It Is, the podcast is about talking about your experiences, talking about the things, the good and the bad. What So I want the audience who may not be familiar with, the experiences of real people to hear their voices. So some people say, like you're saying, you want Latinos who aren't familiar with the colorism problems being faced to hear this, and now they can reflect. What has your spirituality been like?
My spirituality has been a journey. I consider myself to be a Christian woman. I believe in the Lord's word and I believe in the Lord, but I'm also science-based. Um, I'll give you an example. Say, for instance, I'm a Virgo. Everything has to make logical sense, has to fit for me. If not, I can't accept it as a reality. So when you look at the Bible, I've read the Bible completely from Genesis to Apocalypse. Not a person that can quote Bible scriptures to you, but if you tell me something that's not the word of God, I know that it's not the word of God.
Mm.
And one of the things, it's been a road. Spirituality for me has really been a road, because I would not accept Jesus for a very long time. I did not that I didn't accept him, is that I didn't understand the sacrifice of him dying on the cross. I didn't understand what grace was. And that made me scrape my knees a lot. I felt a lot. I wish I would have known God more. So I've been a time.
What does that mean? You scraped your knee. What does that mean? At work, in relationships, like what does that
In
mean?
everything. If something's not blessed by God, it's not going to function optimally, period, what it could be. If it doesn't come blessed, if it doesn't come from him, it's not gonna be good. What you think is good can never be what he's gonna give you. So when I mean scrape my knees, I think I wouldn't have. I've 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 suffered a lot. But most of my suffering has come from me trying to find my way, you know, kind of not feeling like I fit in the box and trying to see what box I do fit in. The process of discovery, finding myself, finding my spirituality is also been tied to finding who I am. That's what I'm really curious right now. I'm curious, and I'm aimed to dissolve my ego, have a death of the ego, because ego doesn't allow you to be yourself. It doesn't allow you to be who God put you on this earth to be, because you're so worried about what you're supposed to be. Right now, where I'm at is I'm learning who I am, and that's like, what do you mean? You're at your age, you don't know who you are yet. And I'm like, it's not that I don't know who that I am. It's that I think that who I am up to this point, or who I created myself to be, was based on expectations of others on me, and what society told me was a definition of successful. And I was exposed to success very early. Like, I remember being at the Institute of Youth Entrepreneurship and being flown at 13 years old on a shuttle to Washington, D.C. to give a board meeting to a nonprofit, and then flown the same day back home. I remember sitting with Bloomberg, at 22 years old and managing a $60 million grant for him. So I have been exposed to all these things. And now it's like I'm sitting back and I'm saying, okay, who am I? Outside, like, my accolades don't make me, my degrees don't make me, my titles don't make me. Who am I? What am I made of? What makes me happy? Not what I was told is supposed to make me happy. That's what spiritual, and that's what it's like. I want to walk as close to the ways of Jesus as I can. Like, I want to follow his example in the best way that I can.
So did you grow up in the church or no?
Yes, I do belong to a church.
Did you grow up in the church?
No, I did not. No, I did not. I was actually, I went through being an atheist. I told my mother I was an atheist at 13. So, my God, she did the holy cross over me. Jesus, she said she don't know what she's talking about. Did the cross over me. You know, my whole thing was I believed in the Big Bang Theory. You know, religion was mythology, and that's it. You know, a way to explain something that couldn't be explained. That's how I looked at it for many years. And then
you said you're science-based and things have to make sense for you. So at what sense does Jesus make for you? How did that begin to make sense? What conclusions did you come to? I want to hear that.
Well, first of all, with the Jesus thing, before we even go to Jesus, the science thing. And as I said, I am a Christian woman, but I am a science. My mind, I need literal, I need facts. So, for instance, I just had this conversation with my pastor where we discussed the chronological, the order of the Bible. Chronologically, the Bible says that man has only been here for 3,000 years, not even 3,000 years, 2,000 years, right? No, what did I say? 3,000 years, 3,000, 4,000 years in the Bible. And we know when we have artifacts and we found skeletons in Ethiopia and fossils of Lucy, which is 2 million years old. We can carbon date her to 2 million. So if you believe in the word of God, then you believe in science, then how do you consolidate those two ideas? Yeah. And the way I consolidate it is we have different metric systems. Like, I don't get caught up in those details. I get caught up in the moral of the story behind that. So there's areas where, and also I leave an area for the spirituality. The fact that there is magic. God is magic. He is able to do things that no one can do. He is able to do miracles. There are things that our human mind cannot explain because we will never have the capacity because we are human. So I give room for that. And what I don't understand, I still trust. Because I trust him and I trust that to be his word. And I trust that I am so inferior to him that I will never be able to grasp him completely and understand him completely. No one can. He created everything.
Let me tell you where I'm at. So we can kind of go from there, you know. It sounds like you're kind of saying it, but you don't want to say it, right? There's a certain amount of the Bible is clearly saying certain things like about science and history and stuff like that the church have kind of disagreed with, right? The church and science have kind of had their disagreements.
Wait, we need to clarify something to our public. There's two Bibles. There's a Bible that is used by the Roman Catholic Church, the Vatican. That Bible has a whole bunch of additional books. It's like 30 books, like the book of Enoch and a whole bunch of other books that run chronologically parallel to Genesis. Those do not exist in the Bible, for instance, that I read, which is considered a Christian Bible, or the Pentecostals, Baptists, Methodists, Christians. We reread the same Bible, where the last book in the Old Testament, Malachi. Yes. No. The King James Version. It's funny that you just said that. I'm not sure if it's the King James Version, but I know that there's two Bibles. The version that the Vatican uses and the Roman Catholic Church uses has like 30 more books in the First Testament. What's called the Dead Sea Scrolls that were taken from the Dead Sea Scrolls.
So you're talking about there's more books in the Old Testament.
Yes.
Got it.
In the Christian Bible, the last book is Malachi of the Old Testament. Okay. It is not in the Roman Catholic Bible. There's a whole bunch of additional books in there. And those tend to be more mythological if you read those books. The ones that are in the Roman Christian Catholic Bible. Now, I look at the Bible in three ways. I look at it as a history book. I look at it as a cultural book, and I look at it as a religious book. In saying that, at the end of the day, I have accepted that there is just a certain point of understanding that I'm not going to get. And that's very hard for me because everything has to make sense. But when you're dealing with the divine, the rules of man don't apply. They just don't. So you asked me, you know, we went around all the way circle my spiritual, how is this affecting me spiritual, my spiritual path. It's been a rough one, but it's one that I wouldn't give back. It's giving me wisdom. Well, I wouldn't change it. It's giving me wisdom.
Life.
Yes.
The school of life. We're here on this planet, and your life is a school. We're here to learn. And, you know, some people fantasize about the easy way, and some people think, oh, I went through the hard way. And either way, we're here to learn. And whatever your experience is, that was your teacher. So it's not about the easy way or the hard way. You're just here to learn. Do you think that the Bible's 100% right?
I believe that the word of God is 100% right, but the Bible has been translated and manipulated. So it's that question is loaded. Is what Bible is right? You know, is it which version? Is which version, which culture? I believe in the word of God, but will I say that the Bible has not been manipulated? I can't say not, because anytime you include man in anything, there is manipulation. We have this, man has this distinct personality trait that we just like to switch things up and put a monkey wrench in everything that we find pure. We can never leave just anything in its pure essence. We always have to complicate things. I feel as if, even with technology, as we become more advanced technological, like you said earlier, you know, we have all this technology, all these frequencies, we become dumber and we just evolve the natural technology that we were born with, the natural universal intelligence that we share with nature. We become less detached from that as we become more.
The name of it, if it's the libraries of something that got burnt, right?
Of Colorist?
No. The in like the Middle Ages or something like that, they went to Egypt and they went to Africa and they burned all of these libraries that had ancient texts.
The libraries at Alexandria.
Right.
The libraries at Alexandria.
So to me,
wasn't that Alexander the Great that did that? Didn't Alexander the Great? And he also knocked off the nose of the Sphinx.
So listen, you know, the reason why I'm bringing all of these things up, and I'm going to tell you because I want it to be clear, right? This podcast, I don't care about views, right? I want to make something that I feel holds the important stuff. I want something that if I'm dead tomorrow, my grandkids can watch it and say, "Granddad left this," you know. And the reason why I'm bringing all of these things up is because the Bible was one of those books in the Library of Alexandria. There were hundreds of them, thousands of them. There were so many texts that talked about spirituality, talked about ancient times, talked about the path to God, that talked about how humanity should be. It talked about politics. It talked about everything. And there was a reason why they eliminated all of these books, to the point where now we have very few texts, right? And now it gives the Bible this ultimate weight as this ancient text that speaks to humanity, as if it was the only one, as if God spoke specifically and this was the only one. And I don't like to not, I'm a Christian, and I don't like to knock the Bible, and I don't like to knock people's belief in it. But at the same time, I'm very comfortable being critical about it. we have to be critical about everything, right? You can't just put a book in someone's hands and says, this is 100% true. This is the way, this is exactly what God said, and this is why we believe this. To me, I think we have to be critical of anyone who's giving us that, and like, why are they giving us this? And then I would say read it, examine it, and then be critical of what you read, right? So I encourage people to be critical, and I encourage people to do this work. You, in my opinion, are very well read. So I would encourage you, have you heard of this? The Three Initiates? It's a book called...
I have heard of it, but I don't know what it is about, to be honest.
It's the Cabal by the Three Initiates. I am not going to tell you that, you know, I'm not even going to tell you anything. I just want you to read that and tell me what you think, because to me, there's a lot of things.
All right, you gotta tell me at least like what, give me a summary, like what the back of the book said. What am I going into?
Basically, if you ask me, this book, it's like, it sounds to me like one of the, like, it's like a summary of a lot of things that were in the Alexandria libraries that became the foundation for what's in the Bible. So the Bible is like a spin-off of what's in this book. So the Bible's very specific, like eye for an eye.
But that also too, with the Bible, that the Bible is a compilation of letters and books and
that's
things.
What I'm saying. I'm saying the people who wrote the Bible, though, all of those people, they had books of their time, and those books we don't have right now, right? So what I'm saying is, in my impression, this cabal from the Three Initiates, what
is a cabal?
It's basically about our existence. It goes into like...
Wait, hold on, because I'm sure I'm ignorant about this. I'm sure other people, other of our viewers are going to be.
I don't mind.
Cabal, what does a cabal mean? Is that a word, or is that a title for this specific book, or an idea that's brought up in this specific book? Is that something? What is a cabal? I don't even know what that is.
So the reason why maybe I started wrongly, right? The book is basically, the Three Initiates are the initiates of a secret organization. So these are some initiates from a secret organization, and they're saying, we have this information. So we've seen that humanity has gotten so lost that we felt compelled to release some of the secret information that we have. So that's why it's written by the Three Initiates. So when they put this book out, they didn't even want credit. They didn't even want, fame. They talk about the seven principles, and basically, I wasn't ready to talk about this today.
It sounds like a book that discusses about. It sounds like a book that discusses the universal truths that you'll find across the board in all things that are good. Yes. Like things that you find in the Bible.
As above, so below.
You find. There's a book called The Anatomy of the Spirit by Carolyn Myss, and she compares Judaism. She compares Judaism, Islam, and Christianity, and she compares the Buddha, Jesus, and Muhammad. And she talks about how for every spiritual teacher, great spiritual teacher, before they're great, excuse me, before they have their spiritual awakening, they go through what's called the dark night. And it's a phrase referred to, if you look at it, the darkest time of the day is right before, the darkest part of the night is right before daybreak. So right before you're about to have a reckoning with yourself and with your a spiritual reckoning, you will go through the worst things in your life because you're being refined, you're being polished through the fire. To and the darkest time is right before the light, before the daylight shines. So that's referred to as a dark night. And I just wanted to, if I can give anybody a takeaway, we all go through a dark night. It's okay. You're not different. There's nothing wrong with you. You're finding yourself, you're discovering yourself. Everybody has their own individual path. And it's nobody's right to dictate or judge anybody else's path. Because we're all here just trying to figure it out.
Right.
We're just here trying to, I really believe that everybody's trying to do their best and figure it out.
That's it. That's it.
But one thing is the takeaway, because this whole thing was on color, race, and gender. And that I really want to, if my grandchildren were to watch this, what would I want my legacy from this piece to be? Is to be that as Black people, listen, let me tell you like it is. We all Black. You know, all the people of color, we're all Black. And whether you're West Indian, whether you're Puerto Rican, whether you're Dominican, whether you're South American, whether you're even North American, the language you speak is determined by the boat of the colonizer that landed on the shores of your indigenous people. We're all the same mixture of people. As long as they continue to separate us, they can control us. They can keep us in the shadows. They can oppress us. They want to control us. Since the beginning of history, Black has always been the power of our Black ancestry has always been powerful and always been recognized as a threat, and either wanted to take.
Sure, she's coming back on. Don't forget your audio.
Yes. I want us to, as Black people, to see that these division, I categorize them so people can understand where they came from. But at the end of the day, it's bullcrap. We're all going through the same experience. We're all being oppressed the same way. We're all being told the same messages to keep us down. And as long as because the Black dollar is very powerful. If we were to unite, and when I say Black, I'm talking about people of color to sum it up. We are our voice, we have power, we created culture. The culture that the Europeans have, they stole from us. Everything starts in Africa. Everything comes from there. So if we really remember this, we can really see past these labels that they put on us, and we can stand united, we can start making changes. But as long as we're bickering amongst each other, that's what they want us to do. Because if we're bickering amongst each other, we're not bickering with the person that's really the problem. We're not bickering with the system. We're not going against the system. So let's keep labeling them. Let's keep subdividing them.
She's losing signal. She's coming back.
Whatever works to keep them bickering among themselves and not make us accountable, we're going to keep dividing and keep dividing and keep dividing. So like you said, race, politics, it doesn't matter. They just need to find that. So Black people, what's the takeaway? Stop bickering amongst each other. We're not each other's enemies. We come in different shades, and that's the beauty of us. And we need to accept that and take that as one of our strengths. Our diversity is actually our strength because we bring more to the table as a whole.
I'm with
so
you.
If I want my grandchildren to know that their grandmama said that.
The conversation, she's summing it up now. We're all about the work, I continue to have these conversations because I want to summarize it.
Yes. I want to say, it's just Black people, we need to start loving each other. We need to start loving each other better. We need to stop fighting amongst each other. We need to learn self-love. We need to love each other. That's what the biggest takeaway is. That's why we have these
Simple.
we need, and I think that starts with examining your own prejudices that you don't even know that you have. Like really taking an in-depth look at yourself. Or am I making microaggressions? Do I have thoughts that are oppressive? Have I been conditioned unconsciously? Have I been programmed? And how am I affecting people? I think that's the first step. We need to look at ourselves and have these conversations with ourselves. And then the second step is being afraid to be vulnerable and have the conversations in our communities. This hurts me. Not being afraid to say when something hurts us. And not that we're Black and we have to suck it up because we're Black. And then the third step I believe is being understanding with each other. Once we come out and saying when you're vulnerable, step 2, you need to be received by somebody that's non-judgmental and that allows you the space to be vulnerable. So as a community, like it goes back to the mental health thing, that's an example. We need, in order to fix the things that are plaguing our community, we have to learn to accept and understand the people and what they're going through, not judge them. Because you could judge all you want, but you're just making a judgment and nothing's gonna happen. Right. There's no improvement, there's no change. So it really bothers you where you're making a commentary till you judge it and you really want to change it. Unless you have the conversation, it's never gonna change. So it is what it is. So I think that would be my takeaway. That would be for me the 3 steps where I would start at, where I have started on, was part of my spiritual journey, because I look at this as very much intertwined. My spiritual journey, my culture, my race, all of that is different facets of who I am. And they have to coincide. So they all walk hand in hand, overlap in different phases in my life.
Absolutely.
Because they all have to be in integrity with each other. And that's not easy.
Listen, this is a big work that we're talking about, I'm a Caribbean American, and I identify with African American, but there's so much division that people from the outside can never understand, and sometimes people inside aren't even aware of it.
You're exactly correct. I think that's what I was talking about earlier in terms of white Latinos not even being aware of the social experience that Black Latinos go through.
Absolutely. We know that being Haitian has a stigma.
Yes. Yeah. And Haitians and Dominicans, they get so upset when I tell them they're the same people. What separates Haiti, they are on the same island. What separates Haiti and Santo Domingo is a river that you can walk across that's up to your knee. They have been trading Haiti. First of all, let's keep it real. The island of Española, because that's the original name for Santo Domingo, for the Dominican Republic and Haiti. It's been colonized at some points by the Spaniards and at some points by the French. So you've had the interbreeding and of slaves. You've had enslaved people. I hate to use that word because they were not born slave. They were enslaved. You have, it's just so ridiculous to me. It's like Muslims and Arabs. I'm sorry, Muslims and Jewish people. They're brothers. Right. Genetically, they're brothers. You tell them that, they want to smack you. But it's the truth. You're killing each other, and genetically, you're both from Abraham. Your father is both Abraham. But these constructs, again, back to all of these divisions are made between groups of people so that the small group, the elite that's in power, can keep power. Because even on the elite level, racism, the few people that control the world at the top, they're not racist. It's about the money, but they push race on us to divide us. They don't have race amongst each other up there. It's money. Money talks. The ones that the 1% that really call the shots on this earth, they don't care about race. They just put race on us so they can control us and divide us and segregate us and oppress us on different levels based on different groups. You can oppress this group in different levels, in different ways. And you can oppress this group in different ways. But it's just to keep the status quo for them, as long as we're bickering. The point is keep the poor folks bickering so we could run the world. And then they don't educate themselves, and they don't find out how great they are. Let's leave them fighting.
So the podcast right now is the early steps, but I want to be a part of the solution. This is a solution-based conversation. So we have to take our next steps and go from there. So whatever suggestions you have in terms of solutions, I'm on board. And I'm going to include you in whatever solution-based project I have as well.
Well, I already spoke to you about one solution, I think. And it's about I've always believed that the solution to most ignorance is education. When people know, then people make better decisions. So that creating a series that actually looks at African and indigenous influence on the modern day Latin culture, and going to each country and really examining. So in Puerto Rico it would be bomba, in Brazil it would be samba, in Colombia it would be mapole, and every country has indigenous and African influences. And I really want to create a documentary that looks at this and honors this. And I think that why is this so important? Because when people understand their culture and understand their commonalities, and they're more willing to come to the table and talk and open up to each other, because they see themselves in that other person.
Absolutely. And I think we have to follow the money, because whoever is pumping these ideas of separation, they benefit from the division. We really have to follow the money.
Definitely. It's not we say money, but it's power, which money usually brings. It's right. Who's in power. Money, because money is just a piece of paper that we decide has a monetary value and we agree upon. But then we quantify power through money. But it's really power. It's really who's holding the power.
And one of the reasons why I continue to talk about religion so critically is because for a long time, the Roman Catholic Church had the power, and they were wielding it by saying, God said we're in charge. The king said, God put us here. So we have to be critical of how power uses religion and spirituality to subjugate us.
Mm-hmm. As a woman, I feel that a lot. Like, you'll hear things, if you're a Christian woman, you wouldn't be doing this. Christianity has been, especially in the Latino culture, we actually have a word for it. It's called mariamismo. And it's the opposite of machismo. You're supposed to follow the example of the Virgin Mary and be about her family, not have an identity, not go after any of the desires. What you feel doesn't matter. You're just supposed to be a mother and a wife, and you revolve around your whole family. And God, and you better not dare think of anything for yourself. Women are educated now, but for many years, for a very long time, that was the mentality. And it's still, even professional women are still expected to be this way. to be a professional woman, to be a breadwinner, and to still have no identity and to be all about her family. And if she's not a good mom. She's not a good wife. If she has anything for her, she keeps anything for herself, or she does too much self-love, or she does too much she allots any time specifically for herself, she's almost made to feel guilty for it. Like she's not supposed to. Like, you don't have an identity as a woman. You're a mother and a wife. You can't wear that. You can't do this. You can't do that. You can't do that. It constraints that are put to control. And the Roman Catholic Church is one of the major players in that. It controlled women's sexuality. For instance, the Bible says that men and women should be virgins when they're married. Why is it that virginity has only been placed on women? Because women are looked at as property. Women are looked at as property. You are mine, and you are to be passed from your father to your husband, and you have a value. Like, people would actually pay a dowry for you. You are property. You are owned by someone. And even in the Spanish tradition, in the old days, when you took your husband's name, it would be Yvette de Matos. De meaning belonging to Matos. Yeah. Now you just use your husband's last name, but before it used to be you should have the de in it.
Right.
So these messages, they know what they're doing. They know what they're doing. But the Roman Catholic Church, yeah, you're actually right. But we have to separate religion from God.
Exactly.
Because religion is opinions and what man has constructed on earth, and God is ultimate truth. What I'm searching is for ultimate truth. Now, I don't consider myself religious because religious implies the ritual and just doing something repetitively. I consider myself spiritual and Christian because I am in communication with the Lord. I am trying to be a better human being all the time. And I am trying to be in community. And I do acknowledge that there's a universal and common intelligence that I am trying to tap into and be a part of and contribute to.
That's it. I'm also critical of the fact that Christianity thinks they're right. Muslims are wrong. Hindu is wrong. Buddhists are wrong. And they got it right.
Well, one premise where I'll hit you with that, the major point there is Christ. The reason why Christianity, because if you read the Quran, for instance, the Quran and the Bible parallel. Jesus is one of the prophets. You know, Muslims acknowledge Jesus and all his miracles, and it says in the Quran that Jesus, when the apocalypse comes, Jesus will be the one that gives truth to everyone. That says it even in the Quran. There's a lot of things that are parallel between the Quran and the Bible. The story, I read it myself. I have a Quran. I read the story of Gabriel myself, when the angel Gabriel comes to speak to Mary and tell him that Jesus is going to be born to her. It's very, very similar. The only difference is that they do not see Jesus as God. Now, Christians believe that God said in his, this is why Christians believe that everybody else is wrong. Christians believe that God, in every religion, to appease gods, you have to give blood, because blood is life, right? Energy is life energy. So in any religion, from Santeria to Roman Catholicism, you have blood and sacrifice. So in the Old Testament, you see all these sacrifices. And God has literally said, you know what, these human beings are really screwed up. I made them imperfect. They have original sin, and they ain't really gonna change. They're gonna have to be sacrificing a lot of animals, and it ain't even really doing nothing for all the sins that these mofos commit. So I'm gonna have to send one big lamb that kind of gives them. I love them, and these are my children. And at the end of the day, like, you are a father. When your children do something wrong to you, you may be upset with them, but you love them and you forgive them, and you always want the best for them. Guys, like, I gotta do something that like is going to like clean the slate, because they're gonna keep messing up. So God embodies himself into a human being. That is huge. He brings, can you hear me? Yeah.
Yes.
He brings him down. He brings from being a celestial being to feel the nuisances of being a human, like sweating and having to eat, and having to use the bathroom and feeling uncomfortable and being sick and just being human. And he doesn't have to experience that. He's God. But he did that so that he could understand what it was like to be a human being.
So you believe this?
Yes.
So if we encounter,
I don't believe that though. Let me just clarify. I don't believe that those other religions are wrong. I just believe that they're incomplete. Like they got it 95%.
Watch this question and watch this. If we went to another universe and we found humans there, right? And they had their own spirituality. So so then it would be our responsibility to teach them about Jesus. Is that right?
Not if well, you see, what you said as a if, I think is a true. I do not believe there's a astrological statistician. What do you call a person that specializes in statistics?
Statistician.
Exactly. And he calculated that in the observable universe, there are at least 5 to 6 million Earth-like planets. So I think that God created everything. So an alien, like we've been around for 6 billion years. If there was a planet that was around for 50 billion years and an inhabitant that was around for 20 million years, it would be more advanced than we are. If it was I think what we think what aliens can come in all kinds of forms because we're carbon-based creatures, right? But
so
if
I'm saying we go there, it's exactly like Earth. They're human beings, right? They're exactly like us, right? They evolved from apes, whatever.
I believe that they would know. I believe that they would know of Jesus.
They would already know Jesus.
I don't believe yes. Or somebody would have come into the civilization that played the sacrificial lamb and showed grace. Because the concept of God has to be universal because God is universal. Christianity is what we call it here. The belief that there's one supreme being that loves us above all things and that embodied himself as a human being to sacrifice himself for us. That concept that we call it, whether we call it Methodist, Buddhist, Roman Catholic, whatever religion you want to put it under, I believe that concept we would still find in other places that recognize God.
Okay.
And civilizations that were more advanced than us probably witnessed Jesus, know of Jesus.
I tell you
because like I was saying to you,
we'll have that.
Wait, let me
I want to hear it.
Real quick. Man has only been here. This planet is only 6 billion years old, and we've been around for 2 or 3 million years. And look at all we've achieved. Now, and we're carbon-based creatures. This is a carbon-based planet. Now, let's say we went to a planet that was hydrogen-based, right? A living creature would not look the same. It may be a ball of gas and energy that's held together by a magnetic field, and it has consciousness, and it's evolved past the physical. I believe that in places where all the other places that are inhabited throughout the solar system and the universe was created by God. So wherever there is intelligence and consciousness, they will know of one God. They will know that God created the universe. And I believe that all the other civilizations are probably older, much older than us, and have much more spiritual understanding than us. So I don't think we have to teach Jesus. I think they would know about Jesus already because they've been observing us for a very long time. We're the babies. They've been here. They know God. They're probably even closer to God. They probably speak to him more freely. They probably just don't even speak anymore. They use telecommunication. Remember, we're constantly evolving and growing. So if human beings were 10 million years older, what would we look like? Will we even physically look this way? So imagine something that was created on a totally different atmosphere, on a totally different planet. Life would have to life would look different. We probably would see aliens and be standing in front of an alien and not even know it's an alien because we do not recognize that as something that looks living because it's not a carbon-based being. But you can't tell me that you got all these stars and all these planets and they're just empty. And God just made all, and there's just one planet in all of the billions and billions of planets that exist in the observable universe. And that's observable because the universe continues to expand and we can't even observe all of it because it's so big. So you're just telling me that all these planets and all these galaxies just exist and there's no consciousness out there? No, come on. I can't. That is just like a waste. Nature does not waste. God is effective and efficient. There's a reason for everything. He would not just create all of that for nothing. And we're the only beings on the whole universe that have consciousness. That makes no sense. And the Bible says that there have been visitors. In Genesis, there's discussion of visitors, star people coming. So even then, and all the scriptures have discussed aliens.
You'll check out the Kabbalion. And we will make another conversation. We'll start there with spirituality. And
that'll be interesting.
Yeah, I'm all about it. Listen, our people need to be freed from the confines of what they were told. And that's what we're doing here. We're by us saying free thought, we empowering others to have free thought, free discussion, disagreements. Open your mind past what your pastor told you. Open your mind past what your parents told you. Open your mind past what your politician or you saw on TV. That's what we're doing here.
We're questioning, and we always have to question, because when we stop questioning, that's when we get into trouble.
Exactly.
We always have to question, and things that are real will always be real, and truth will always rise to the top. So we don't have to be afraid to question.
Exactly.
What is right come up, what the cream will rise to the top always.
Thank you so much for taking the time today. Do you want to leave us with anything?
I just want to thank you for inviting me. Thank you for having this platform. Thank you for the discussion. It's so important that we have it. Thank you for allowing me a safe place to be vulnerable and showing people, look, I'm not dead. I was vulnerable. I'm still here. It's okay to be vulnerable. As a matter of fact, it really shows you what you're made of when you really look at yourself in the mirror and talk about your stuff and open and grow. So don't be afraid. It's part of the process. It doesn't look pretty all the time. Sometimes you feel like you're judging to straight shit, but keep judging and know that you are not alone, that the God does not promise that you will not face adversity, but he does promise that he will not leave you alone and that he will give you the resources and tools that you need to get over it.
Amen.
So break down where you need to, do what you need to do. If you need to cry, kick, have your little attack, have it, take care of yourself, and then you pick yourself up when you're ready. Don't let people dictate your mental illness, how you your recovery, where you should be at. Be concerned with really be concerned with looking at who you are. What makes me happy? What am I about? What's important to me? What are my values? Not the values that were imposed on you, that were told that you were supposed to have. Who are you? Look at yourself in the mirror. Who am I? Who do I want to be? Am I walking in integrity with who I want to be? And it may be totally not. But you know what? That's the start. That's the start. Identifying where you're at and where you want to go. That's the start. And having the balls to make an honest assessment of yourself.
Honest assessment. Thank you so much. We'll do it again.
Yes, it was a pleasure. Thank you. You guys have a good evening. Take care.